Welcome, welcome. So the project this week is to turn this area here, the area that has the plywood on it, underneath, not that area. So the three pieces of plywood that went from above to below that are now the ceiling down here. This area here is going to get enclosed and is going to be part of that living space. And then here there will be a post and a doorway. And then, so first I need to clean this space out. And at some point I'm going to do a custom counter. That might be this week. And then mount the counter in this corner here to be looking out both ways. And just moving things around, and we'll see how far we get this week. So I think I had like one video earlier. I've removed a bunch of stuff from here already. And got the couch, the table, both cement mixers. I just moved that cement mixer out. So I just started to frame this wall. That board's not going on the wall. That board is going to be for a custom countertop in here, which is a first for me, doing an epoxy resin countertop. And so this is kind of what it's all looking like in here for right now. I'm going to keep moving this stuff out and keep framing that wall, and then try to find a place to put these three big objects, that dresser, the washer and dryer, and start to kind of shape the room while using the recycled windows that I have, including these single pane windows for the inside windows that will be looking to this area, which is like a thermal buffer zone. And then I'll find some double paned windows for this outer face, and figure out a way to kind of frame that appropriately. So that's what I'm looking at for the current project, what's currently on the plate. So it's Thursday around noon, and you can kind of get an idea of how I'm partitioning this area. I got these 4 pieces of stainless steel at one point thinking they were going to be for a drawbridge, but that didn't end up materializing. Well, a drawbridge materialized, but a different design pared down. So now I'm using these as like siding. It almost makes me think of like a little diner or something. I like the material. And then these windows are just single pane, like recycled, like winter pane windows that used to go in other windows, but I've got a bunch of those. And then out here, I've got another one of the stainless steel. I'm going to try to incorporate the 4th one into there somehow. And then over here, there's the second in that pair of windows, where the other one is above right over here, that area of the loft on its side. And then that one will allow direct outside window access. And then I put that metal thing in the corner that a friend had given me as kind of like a salvage thing. And so I'm thinking at some point there might be like a wood stove that could go in the corner here, and then send a chimney pipe out that hole, perhaps, and then send a chimney up. So we're going to keep that as a kind of an option. And so now what I'm kind of thinking is, like, I don't know exactly how to bend this steel properly because it kind of hits the cement there. So I'm going to try to like drop kick it and see how that goes. And this might be disastrous, so I decided to get it on film. Well, that's better anyways. It'll probably take maybe some work with a sledgehammer or something, but that's a lot more straight than it was, and kind of like molds to the cement there. It just needs a little bit more work, but that actually worked out pretty well. The wall and everything is sturdy enough that it didn't destabilize the wall to do that. So that's kind of planning ahead to put that in there. It might be a bit close for these 2x to be next to that hole. So that would definitely need like some kind of fire bricking or insulation to protect the wood should a chimney go there. But I like the idea of there potentially being a wood stove in the corner here. So that's how it's looking so far. I'm going to try to both do like 2 doors, a left and a right door, and then a continuation of that wall, but kind of like at an angle, to use the last stainless steel sheet to get from that post over to the footer here. And then there will be a separate door on this side, an insulated door on this side, and then a less insulated door on that side, or something like that. So that's kind of the goal. And then at some point I'm going to get into using this thing to build a custom counter, which I'm thinking is going to go along the right wall, but I'm not totally positive yet. But I'm thinking it's going to have a sink in it, and if you're standing at the sink, you're going to be wanting to look out at the horses and outside. So probably right along that wall is where the counter will be. I'm not sure if the washer and dryer will stay in there or not, but that's how it's all looking for right now. So by the afternoon, I have most of the shape of the room. So you see there's a doorway on the left, the doorway on the right, and those 4 metal pieces are up, which I was kind of designing the room around those metal pieces, as well as these recycled window panes. So I was able to fit a 4th one there, but one doesn't fit in this last space here. And then there'll be an insulated window in this door, and then there will be just a single window pane in this door because that area won't be insulated. And now I'm trying to figure out what this countertop is going to be like. I'm going to do a custom countertop, but I don't know where to put it, how to design any of this other than that. I think there will be like an outhouse toilet in the back corner there. But there's going to be a lot of framing and a lot of problem solving to figure out down here, and probably be easier if those washer and dryer weren't there, but I'll work around them for now. I just got the shape for the counter. You can see it's the same shape in reverse because I'm gonna turn it around and then double it up, screw it together, and then end up doing like an epoxy coat resin of it, so it should all we'll see how it goes. It's the first time doing it, but the idea is to double that up, and then I'm thinking it's gonna go on this wall here, but I could always change my mind. I don't know, but that's what I'm thinking. It'll go on this side here, and then it'll end up having a sink embedded in it, and the cutout for the sink will likely end up being a little table over there or something. Another supply trip today. I got some more materials to help clad this new room, as well as hinges for the 3 doors, and rebar, because I'm going to dig some of the dirt out, which, oh, look at the footer of this one. I was just using all the pieces of scrap like PTA had, and it's an uneven surface, so that's how it turned out. A bunch of short pieces. But it'll be good. At some point I'll probably like cement around it or something, but I'm going to end up digging out a lot of this dirt because it's higher on the left, and the dirt is going to have to go into tires. The tires are going to go into building up that tire wall. I mean the dirt and the tires. And so the rebar is going to go, I needed to get rebar to go into an end concrete, so like where there's a half tire and this tire stepping up. Not all those tires are packed. There's a row of packed tires, and then there's a row of just spare tires being stored on top. So I'm going to have to take down the spare tires, expose the pounded tires, which are stepped up, and when you reach the end, what you do if you want a vertical end, instead of it stepping back, is you do like a half tire with cement and use lath to enclose the area like a tiny little footer. And so I'm going to do that, but I'm going to put rebar in it going vertically so that there's rebar anchored into the end corner wall of the first tire that I cement in. So that's all connected to the dirt. The dirt's got to go somewhere. I'm not going to move the dirt twice. So the dirt is going to go into this new tire wall project, which then leads to a future project because there will be rebar sticking out of a cement block, which obviously then I'm going to be like, ooh, what can I do with that? So who knows exactly what I'll do with that. But that's on the agenda. That's why I needed rebar. And if I'm going to buy rebar, I was planning on doing a bunch of rebar for other things. So I needed to get enough rebar to get the bulk pricing. So there's at least 60 pieces of rebar. And that leads to the next project. So everything is connected in how the projects evolve practically from one to the next, which might not be in direct alignment of what I had preconceived of as this series of events to take. And there's chicken food and more wood to frame all this in, more coal lumber, and that's all for now. Also, here's that counter. I had to get a new jigsaw blade too at Home Depot, so that this counter, now that I flipped it over onto itself, I now have to use the jigsaw to go around it to get it to kind of have a consistent angle between the two after I finish screwing it off. And then I'll sand it all down and get it really smooth. It's the other side that's going to be the top side. And then I'm going to do that epoxy resin. I think just on the top and the edges, not on the underneath. But I've got to screw off the underneath really well so that this all becomes just one big piece. But then I also got to measure the sink and cut out the sink part as accurately as possible to maintain that material that's cut out so that that becomes a separate usable piece. So that's the counter project. Here's what the sink looks like mounted into the counter. And then the thing I just cut out for the sink, I had the most minimal damage over here with the drill bit. But then that'll be a table. I was even thinking I could maybe like swing out from the counter, which would be super cool, but I don't know if the material is really that strong or if I have the right objects to do that. I might be able to actually salvage one of these tricycle wheels that's lodged in the roof to have the kind of like hinge thing to make the table rotate out. I'll look into it anyways. But I was actually surprised that this thing fit on the first try. It fits like perfectly, and so I'll have to do a very minimal amount of work. And I was also worried that the counter being so narrow here that it wouldn't be able to bear the weight. But with two of these sandwiched together, it's pretty strong. And I think the resin makes it stronger. But then it'll be reinforced, maybe even with a couple 2x4s on the front for support or something like that. 2x3s. So anyways, I now have to go around the whole edge of it and like cut a number of these corners, do a little modification for the bend in the wall right there, and basically just smooth the edge with the jigsaw by cutting all the way around it. Then the next step is sanding and making sure that there's the holes for the sink as well. And then once that stuff is done, then it'll be ready for the epoxy. So yeah, I'm gonna get to cutting the edges. So I finished screwing off the countertop, and I went around the whole edge with the jigsaw. Well, the back edge with the circular saw, but that ended up taking a lot more time and power than I expected, or electricity. But now I'm ready to turn it over, so I'll turn it over and see what it looks like on the other side. And then I'm gonna turn it around as well to get it arranged the way that I'm gonna want it in here. So this is roughly how the counter sits in here, which I was kind of thinking it would go another foot this way to the right, but it turns out it's probably better to go all the way to the post there. And then I got the washer there down to the level where it can hold it, but obviously it can't stay there because there's a sink there, plus it might be broken. But anyways, that basically right now it seems really narrow right now because like the dryer is over there, but really when this stuff is moved and then the door opens here, then this will be good. I might just round this corner a bit more to make it a little more feng shui. Probably cut a good bit off of it actually, but that's how it's looking now. I've got to sand it. I was really hoping to put the epoxy on today, which I suppose I might be able to do that, but we'll see if I can get it today or if it'll be tomorrow. So because the counter wasn't totally flush all the way around, and this was a cull piece of lumber in the first place, so it was damaged, I went through and put some like wood putty around the whole edge. And so I'll let that dry and tomorrow sand it. And then I think I'm just about ready to add the base layer of epoxy. So I got these materials from StoneCoatCountertop, which they have a YouTube channel. You can look them up. They've got all sorts of that's where I got the idea to do this. And then I got the epoxy undercoat here. It did spill a little bit in the shipping. So first I put on the undercoat. Then I'm gonna do some things with spray paint, and we'll see how it all goes. So I got a base coat of this epoxy undercoat on the counter. The counter, it's not like perfectly sanded, and it's gonna get bugs on it, and it's not gonna be perfect. But anyways, I've got to wait for this to dry an hour, and then apply a second coat after sanding it lightly. So I'm gonna have some breakfast and then come out here and sand this and put on a second coat. Verona here, Grandma Verona, she had an egg with the chicks in here. She hasn't had an egg in months and months. With the chicks back in here with her, she had an egg. But she had it right at the base of the door, so when I opened the door, it broke the egg. But she's appreciating it. I appreciate that she had an egg. She's eating it up. These little chickies are having a good impact on Verona. They're eating some crumbles. Verona's eating her. I wonder if she'll have another egg now. Or if that was her very last egg. We will see. Might have been the last one she was holding on to. Only tell in time. The chickies are taking over the living room, and it's turning into a big mess. Poop all over the ground. But it's okay, I can tolerate it for a couple weeks. It can turn into a chicken sty, and then I can clean it all up later. Because it's just raw cement. But this is the first time the majority of the chicks are out and about. They've jumped down from their raised box. Oftentimes they've been in with Verona, and they run around in there, but this is the first time the majority of them are scurrying around, enjoying their freedom. So now what I've done is put a can of stone Rust-Oleum onto the white surface. And there's a couple kind of spotty areas, but I tried to do my best to kind of keep it even. And it almost achieves the effect, but not quite. But the plan is, so this is basically the undercoat. So the plan is in the next coat to put copper spray paint in the epoxy. I think that'll work, I'm not entirely sure, but, and then put that over this, and then at some point I suppose after that I would do the sanding. Anyways, the copper in the epoxy should help to complete the effect of the transformation of this material into this monolithic thing. So I imagine I have to wait at least an hour or two before I can do that, and I also have to figure out a way to make this totally level. And so I'm doing this little piece at the same time so that it all gets done. And that textured spray paint does a pretty good job of hiding a lot of the lines on the sides and imperfections and stuff. I kind of messed up over in that corner, but I guess it'll just be kind of like a feature. And I guess I missed kind of a spot right there. Well, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. It is Saturday evening, and I've applied one coat of the epoxy resin, managing to spill very little. But I didn't end up putting as much copper in it as I think I would have liked, because you can't even really tell all that much difference now compared to before, because the copper wasn't very thick. But basically now I'm trying to keep the bugs out, or help them out when they get stuck there, and then I'm going to use the torch to, I guess, torch it, and like it helps it settle, I think. So I can't tell if I made it better or worse. I think it looks better on camera. But I added some like pore features to make it look like it's like coppery kind of. I think I like this side more than this side. But I could do some more. I just don't really know how much is too much, and I kind of like that thing, and I don't want to make it worse, because like I can't like undo anything that I do. So I'm kind of thinking I'm going to add a little more. I don't know exactly. So it's the end of the day, Saturday. I messed up this copper one in the middle, kind of. I still can't tell if I've made it better or worse. Part of me says I've made it worse, but I've definitely learned a lot in the process. And I don't know what will happen when I sand this type stuff. but looks like there's rain coming, and I like one like that. Like, this is cool. It like looks like a whole grain. That one's kind of cool. I like this one. When you put the blowtorch to it, it creates a whole different effect, which I don't know, but that's where it is now. So it looks kind of cool in here. There's rain coming, and I really shouldn't have moved it. It messed this up a bit. There's like wrinkles in it now. And then I messed this one up, which I really liked. But I'm learning so much in my first attempt at doing this. But I think it will make for a really kind of rather elegant counter, insofar as not seeing how it's supported so much and just kind of giving a lot of counter space, but being otherwise like not too imposing on the space. So ultimately, I like it a lot more in here than out there, and that's like kind of believable. We'll see if I sand it tomorrow, if I mess it up more or what. I kind of want to like add more now. I never know like when is enough in something like this, and it's so easy to screw things up. But we'll see. So it's Sunday morning. I was thinking I was going to be able to sand this, but it's still sticky. I think the drying is affected by the temperature. But this is how it's looking right now. I figure the next step is sanding it. I still haven't decided if I like it more with the various kind of like... I definitely like the pores. But this last coat of dark brown I put on, I like need to highlight it. So I'm almost thinking of doing like more. But it's like every time I do more, I'm like not quite sure if it's better or worse. And definitely the pores are better than this brown, more recent brown stuff. So I was thinking I was going to accent that with a batch that's more like this, so that's more metallic and has like a pore in it. So I think I'm just going to do that now, even though this like hasn't dried, and I think I'm supposed to do like a sand layer in between them. But I mean, if it's still wet, I don't see why you wouldn't be able to add more on there. So I'm just gonna hope that the addition creates an improvement. But I do really like this pour and how it kind of like sits in there. If that metal holds up, I think that's really cool. And so like the torch can kind of particularize instead of it being in like a sheen. So like this one was torched, and that one was torched. That one in the middle was torched, which I didn't really like, and then this one out here was one that I kind of like smeared, which I don't really like any of the ones that I smeared. So I kind of just want to like accent those ones somehow, which I think I'm going to do to add a bit more resin on, because basically, well, I didn't do it really the way they explain the way you're supposed to. So anyways, we'll see how it turns out. So I tripled down, so to speak, and added another poured layer, thinking that if I add enough complexity, it'll achieve the end result, but it might just make it kind of like a bunch of scribbles on a piece of paper, you know? It's hard to really tell the difference, and it's an art form, and this is my very first one, so I don't have very high expectations. And I'm doing all sorts of things I don't understand, like adding hot water in to try to raise the temperature and then mix it in, and then different rates of spray. Like, look at the variation of like how the metallic things come up versus and then there's like water bubbles in there. So there's also sorts of things that can kind of change the way it all turns out. But the problem is that I think you're supposed to do all of this at once when everything's all kind of warm and liquid. And now the base layer isn't going to move, and I still don't know what's going to happen with sanding, but I didn't really have the patience to not add more. And I might even, I'm likely to just add like one more now and just like keep adding more. Like, why not? So I keep adding more to this counter. There's kind of like two colors there. It's really neat where the different pores blend together. And I like that a lot more than like the lower dark brown level where I kind of, it's more just like paint kind of. when it's poured, it gets this whole 3D aspect. Like here, you can see like the shadow of the one pour above the other pour, the blue above the brown there. That's cool. It gives it like a whole 3D type thing. So this is really an experimental one. I'm learning all sorts of stuff about the material, how it dries, how it interacts with different things in itself, and where it likes to go and whatnot. And all the pores, it's like they get cooler over time, and they'll merge with other ones, like that light blue and the brown. And then how the copper one there, it's almost like it repels the color around it, like gives itself a halo. And this is an interesting feature, how it's like there's a new pour, and then it's going underneath of the copper. Like the copper wants to stay on top of the resin. So that's probably not a good sign as far as ever wanting to sand this. But I'm thinking I'm just going to leave it like this. I keep saying that, and then I keep adding more. But currently I'm thinking I'm going to leave this like this, let it dry until like the end of the day, and then put one more layer with just some copper over the whole thing to kind of even it out, because right now there's different like layers where it's not totally viscous, and so like the newer pores are layered on top of the other ones. So I want to give them time to kind of dry out, but then also I'll have to like add more on top to kind of even it out, and then try to do that in a way that doesn't mess up all of the stuff that's already there. So I don't know what I'm doing with this, so it's all interesting and new to me. I did one more thing of color, the light line, trying to make a really long line through it, and then all the way over to here. Still not really sure about any of it. It probably overall would look better if I didn't do any pores and it was just the copper epoxy over the base layer. But then again, there was a lot of other things that this is covering, so now anyways, it is what it is. I think I'm done. I'm gonna wait till tomorrow for this, and I'm gonna pivot to tires because I can't do any kind of construction work around here because sawdust would just ruin this. Bugs are liking to land on it. I'm surprised the animal hasn't tried to get on it yet. But essentially, I'm gonna wait till tomorrow till this is mostly dry, and then I'm gonna do a top layer of just the copper in it, like a clear copper coat kind of, to go over it to fill some of the crevices and to protect some of the upper layer kind of copper sheen stuff. And hopefully it might take 2 layers. I might have to do, this whole thing might take a while, we'll see. While the counter dries, I am now embarking on the next project. So this is the far side of that structure, which was just a woodshed and is now evolving into more. And one of my long-term goals, oh boy, is to build a terrace level along this whole hillside here. So this is going to be the first kind of step of that, is that the goal here is to dig out this mound of dirt in between here and that arch, and then to build a tire wall that starts down there and then goes up to the left. And then I'll end up building a cement arch from one tire wall to the other to basically extend that tunnel from where it ends, where the firewood is, to like almost all the way over here at this corner. And this is kind of like an infrastructure project, and will keep me busy while that counter is drying and I gotta stay out of there. So I'm gonna put the first tire in here. Got the first peach blossoms. Bunch of them getting ready, and there's some more over here. And then like that, the plum. Going crazy with flowers. Even in the rain, there's some pollinators. They've been buzzing with activity. That one's about to bloom. This one's a little further behind. The spring energy is returning. Look at this. Verona is sleeping in a new place tonight, and all the other chickies are under here, and they're just about snuggled up with her after probably 6 times in here. Verona would usually always lay down right there in the corner by the door. That's so cute. So I think I'm gonna leave the chickies in here for the first time tonight. And I'll probably just leave my door open so it doesn't get too cold in here. And otherwise they'll maybe snuggle up with Verona. So sweet. And there's another egg in here. Another chicken got in here, but I think it was Verona who laid it. The chickies had their first full night staying out here without additional heat during the night. They all did well. They're all huddling for warmth right now, but they've all got some feathers. They've been flying around and spending time with Verona, who's down here. How's it going, girl? So now they can stay in here all the time. I don't have to bring them into the house and get all dirty, and I can just share the heat from the house by opening that door and have a fire going in there, and they're all good now. They're growing up so fast. I ended up getting rained out yesterday, but not before I could get one tire pounded, first tire of the season, and then set up the second course just like that. There's rocks in the bottom and like in the corners, so it's like a kind of like a rock wall underneath to support the dirt inside and prevent critters from getting at it. And I might get to some more tire stuff today, I'm not sure, but first check out how this counter turned out. So the counter turned out pretty funky. There's a number of different kind of designs. Some of it kind of plays with the others. But it's all basically mostly dry now. A number of areas where there's bubbles, and then like the bubbles popped, and so that was one that had a bunch of water bubbles in it. So that creates cool effects also of like holes in it. So you can see the background and it will give it more depth. And so the next step is I'm gonna mix up a pretty good sized coat, and then just put a clear coat with copper over all of this, which will help to fill all the valleys and the holes and stuff, and to cover kind of like that copper area, hopefully give a little bit of kind of protection. So I'll do two. I'll basically split it, the rest of the epoxy I have, which I've gone through about half of it so far, in 2 batches. I'll do 2 more coverings of the whole thing, and probably after, at some point, I'll do some sanding. I don't know if I want to do it now though. So this last coat of copper just went over everything, and so it kind of dulls it a bit, but also it protects it, and I'll be able to, I'm figuring out this is the coat that'll get sanded out in areas where it's already raised, and the idea is that this coat will kind of fill most of the like valleys and the various holes and stuff. So I'll have to wait for this to dry till tomorrow, and then I think I can sand it, if not in the morning, probably by the end of the day tomorrow, and then I'll apply one more coat, similar but with a little bit less color, and that will be the top coat that will basically, maybe that one will get sanded too, after it's finally dried. So probably like 4 days left in the process, but these areas that were left by the water bubbles turned out pretty cool, and it's got a lot of like variation in all the different depths and stuff. So I guess I'm gonna go back to tires, I figure, unless I can think of something else to do while this is all drying. I realized that using this little like magnetic merchandise thing, I could scrape the top layer. So I was basically able to, as best I could, scrape all the taller features so that all of the epoxy resin gets into the lower areas, and kind of like use it like a squeegee to fill a lot of those holes. And so it ended up doing a lot better at evening the whole space out. You can kind of see in the reflection the variations of the elevation of it. But it's the same plan, so I just worked the resin a lot to move it where I wanted it to go. And then either tomorrow, probably end of the day, is when I'll be able to sand it and then apply the final coat. Look at that, another egg from Verona. She had been eggless for like a year. I thought she was all done laying eggs. But after spending time with the chicks, she's re-stimulated. She's fertilized where she was maybe barren. But the chickies and Verona are bonding, and Verona is better for it, and the chickies are better for it too. Monday evening, and I'm up to 5 tires now. So for today, pounded, and I'm about halfway through the peak of this hill, but probably only a third of the way through all the dirt in order to dig through to that tunnel over there. And basically the tires are stepping up, so you can see on the far end there's 3, and then it steps up, so then it's only 2, and then here it's going to step up again once I set the next tire. So once I set the next tire and then the next one there, it's always just one after the other, and just one step at a time, one shovelful at a time, and the hill disappears and the tire wall is built. Gotta keep at it. I'm gonna try to do another 1 or 2 today. So by the end of the day, I got 2, 4, 6, 7 tires done, which isn't like that many, but I'm still exhausted. And my first kind of full day of tires, even though it wasn't really a full day, but it takes a while to get all of those muscles engaged and back in the swing of things. But I dug through a good bit of this trench, getting over to that archway, and just stepped up the wall again, and the next course is set to step it up one more time, though it'll be a little bit tricky. It'll probably have to be a big tire to work that out. And then the idea is to send the tire wall that way and then somehow connect with the tires on the end of that structure, and then the final tire that was pounded in that tire wall there at some point, and connect all 3 and make a kind of union. But for now, this is where I'm going to leave it today, and probably with one more day, a full day of tires, I could probably get this trench all the way through that berm there and get a lot better access to that tunnel, and then I'll have to start going down. But probably like 3 or 4 days maybe with tires before ferro cement, but tires first. Next 2 tires started. This one I went with a big one, and then a small one there with the same lineup, because I'm going to put a lath end on it of concrete to support it, so it'll be getting its strength more from the concrete. It's more of a form. And then this whole area over here, there's a little flat area on the outside of the tire wall, which had been just kind of like a brush wall, kind of. But basically, I'm just going to clear out a lot of this brush, most of which is dead, and let it burn while I go back and forth between fire tending and tire pounding. One more tire. Slow progress with the tires, but I'm making a lot of progress with the fire as the countertop is drying. So I've got most of this tire wall here exposed, where you can now actually see most of it, rather than it just being overgrown with brush. And similarly, all the way up to here, I'm getting the brush up off the tire wall and exposing it, so that I'll be able to work with it this season. Probably I'll end up packing it out and see if I can get that facade over it this season. But I'm probably going to burn a good bit of this brush here, and the tire wall will be standing out on the hillside for a couple weeks till all these till the leaves come in on all these trees here. So after I burnt out all the brush, I also cut some trees back to basically expose the whole tire wall here, which is a decent size area. And you can see here how this arch will end up going from there to there, and how close this trench is to getting to over there. So just in one day, or really 2 days, but just the clearing out that brush and the burning and exposing the tire wall and everything makes the whole next project, well, the facade, I don't know if that is the next project, but like the stone wall that goes over the tire wall with the crenellations on top. So now it's all exposed up to like the plum trees there. and I can easily access it. I can pack out this tire wall and do some cement work, probably within like well, I still need to do the lower room first. That's a priority, and then this. So the lower room has to be done by June, and then this comes after. This whole wall project. Got a good plan for this archway in the wall and how it all integrates. We have to stay tuned in to find out. So now you can see the tire wall all the way up to the plum trees. See that old fender type thing. And all this is exposed. I cut a branch off of this tree, and I had to cut those two trees because they were going to be too close to the wall. But this tree and that tree are good. And I've just about gotten through all of the stuff that I cut, as well as the brush. And thinking I'm going to be able to get through that trench and do maybe 2 more tires, maybe start a third for today, as well as finish setting the fires. And then I'll get to compiling the video, upload overnight, and get back to work early tomorrow. Working now that the season started, and even before the season started, working 7 days a week whenever possible, and trying my best to stay focused on the tasks at hand. End of the day, Tuesday. The fire is just about all burnt out. This area is all cleared out. Just a couple vinings left. Going over there, and got another tire or two done. And now the trench goes all the way through to the woodshed. I've got a good bit down I can dig, and then widen the trench on the left as I bring this tire wall up there. The counter still wasn't ready to be sanded, so tomorrow morning is when I'm going to sand that and then apply the final epoxy coat, which means tomorrow will be another tire day, which means that I'll get to the phase of extending this tire wall going that way, and I'll probably dig out just about all of this left wall here so that the space for this tunnel will be rather clear. But that's the end for this week's video, which I'm planning to now edit and upload. This peach tree had been blossoming, and now this peach tree has its first open blossom, so they can cross-pollinate. I think that's how peaches work. Oh, I'm also seeing some kind of worm thing going on up there, which I'll have to deal with relatively quickly so they don't spread. Okay, so the other thing I want to show, so this is a tree that I planted last year. This is a plum tree of the same pollinating kind of family as this corner plum. And here, it's got its first couple flowers. I didn't even think it was going to flower this year. And it's got more budding there, and then that flower. So that potentially there will be the first fruit from this tree ever, because now there's this other pollinator, because that other one next to it can't pollinate it. And so this one and this one are different species. And then I just saw the first flower on this one up here, so that this one can start pollinating that one. So far the plum news is good, and the peach news is good. Barring some late frost, they're gonna be fruitful this year, and some of them for the first time ever.